I checked the time on my phone for the 10th time. 8:15 p.m. The pasta I had made from scratch was already getting cold, and the candles in the center of the table were burning low. He's just late, I whispered to myself, smoothing the fabric of my dress. He probably stopped to get the gift. It was our 5th anniversary. 5 years of building a life together, of scraping pennies to pay rent, of dreaming about the future. I heard the familiar jingle of keys at the door and my heart jumped. I stood up, putting on my best smile. The door opened, but Mark didn't walk in with a bouquet of red roses or a wrapped box. He walked in dragging a large black suitcase. My smile froze. Mark, what is that? He didn't look at me. He wheeled the suitcase into the center of the room and left it there. His face was cold, like a stone wall. We need to talk, Elena, he said. His voice was flat. Talk? I laughed nervously, walking toward him. You're late. I made your favorite. Put the bag away. Are you going on a trip for work? He took a step back when I reached for his hand. I'm not going on a trip. I'm moving out. The room went silent. I could hear the buzzing of the refrigerator. What? I whispered. I'm leaving you, Mark said, finally looking me in the eye. There was no sadness in his gaze, only annoyance. I can't do this anymore. Do what? My voice shook. We're happy. It's our anniversary. You're happy, he corrected me. I'm suffocating. Look at this place, Elena. Look at you. I looked down at my dress. It was simple, bought on sale. What's wrong with me? You're too simple. He spat the words out. You have no ambition. I'm an executive now. I need a woman who can walk into a room and command attention. A woman who elevates my status, not whatever this is. Tears pricked my eyes. I supported you for 2 years while you looked for that job. I paid every bill. I cooked every meal. You said I was your rock. I don't need a rock anymore, Mark said, checking his expensive watch. I need a diamond. And I found one. My stomach dropped. You found one? What does that mean? He sighed, impatient. I've been seeing someone. Her name is Vanessa. She's different. She has connections, wealth, class. You're cheating on me? I screamed, the tears finally spilling over. After everything I did for you? Don't make a scene, he warned. It's over. I packed my things while you were at work. This is the last of it. He grabbed the handle of the suitcase. Panic seized me. I couldn't let him go. Not like this. I rushed forward and grabbed his arm. Mark, please. I sobbed, humiliated but desperate. Don't do this. We can fix it. I can change. I can dress better. Please, don't leave me alone. He looked down at my hand on his sleeve with pure disgust. He shook me off hard enough that I stumbled back against the table. The silverware clattered loudly. Look at yourself, he laughed, a cruel, cold sound, begging. You're pathetic, Elena. This is exactly why you'll never be enough for me. He opened the door. The hallway light spilled in. Wait! I cried out, reaching for him one last time. Goodbye, Elena. Keep the ring, he said, tossing a small velvet box onto the floor. I bought you a cheap one anyway. Vanessa wouldn't be caught dead wearing it. The door slammed shut. I stood there, staring at the wood, waiting for him to come back, waiting for the punchline, but there was only silence. My legs gave out and I sank to the floor right next to the discarded velvet box. I reached for my phone with trembling hands. I dialed the only number that mattered. Elena? Sarah's voice answered on the first ring. Happy anniversary. How is? He's gone, I choked out, curling into a ball on the rug. He left me, Sarah. He's gone. I'm coming, she said instantly, her voice turning sharp. Don't move. I'm on my way. I dropped the phone and stared at the suitcase tracks left on the carpet, feeling my heart break into a million pieces. I ripped the packing tape across the final cardboard box. The harsh tearing sound echoed in the empty hallway. 2 weeks. It had only been 2 weeks, but 5 years of my life were already packed away in brown cardboard. My phone pinched from where I had left it on the floor. I knew I shouldn't look. I knew it would only hurt. But my hand moved before my brain could stop it. I tapped the notification. Mark's face filled the screen. He wasn't sad. He didn't look like a man who had just destroyed a relationship. He was beaming, holding a crystal glass of champagne. And next to him, clinging to his arm like a vine, was her. Vanessa Sterling. I read the caption aloud, my voice trembling. Engaged? Engaged? I whispered to the empty room, feeling the blood drain from my face. We were together 5 years. You've known her for a month. She was beautiful. Not in a soft, welcoming way, but in a sharp, expensive way. Her silk dress probably cost more than my entire student loan debt. She looked like a queen, and Mark looked like the lucky peasant she'd allowed into the castle. The phone rang in my hand, startling me so bad I almost dropped it. The screen flashed, Mrs. Gable. A tiny, foolish spark of hope ignited in my chest. Maybe his mother wanted to apologize for her son. Maybe she wanted to tell me she missed me. Hello, Mrs. Gable? I answered, clutching the phone tight with both hands. Elena, her voice was crisp, lacking any warmth. I assume you're moving out today? Yes, I stammered, caught off guard. I'm just finishing up. I thought maybe you called to check on me. She sighed, a sound of pure impatience that crackled through the speaker. Oh, Elena, let's not be dramatic. I called to make sure you left the spare keys on the counter. Mark doesn't want any awkward run-ins when he comes to prep the apartment for sale. Awkward? I felt a lump form in my throat. Mrs. Gable, he left me for someone else. He's engaged. I saw the post. Yes, isn't it wonderful? She chirped. The sudden tone shift was like a slap in the face. Vanessa is a lovely girl. Her father is in real estate, you know? A very powerful family. I know, I said, my grip tightening on the phone until my knuckles turned white. I saw the pictures. Ideally, this is for the best, she continued, her voice turning lecturesque. You were a sweet girl, Elena, but let's be honest. You were a placeholder. A placeholder? I repeated, the air leaving my lungs. I paid his rent for 2 years. I bought his groceries when you wouldn't give him a dime. I supported him when nobody else believed in him. That was your choice, dear, she dismissed me easily. Mark has always been destined for great things. He needs a partner who operates on his level. Someone who opens doors, not someone he has to drag through them. I loved him, I whispered, the fight draining out of me. Love doesn't pay for country club memberships, she said coldly. Move on, Elena, find someone simpler. Someone more your speed. Goodbye. The line went dead. I stood there, the silence ringing in my ears. I wasn't just dumped. I was being discarded like a candy wrapper. I was a stepping stone he had stepped on to get to the top. 2 hours later, I was hauling my life into Sarah's spare room. It was tiny, cluttered with gym equipment and old boxes, but it was a roof over my head. Here, Sarah said, shoving a warm mug of tea into my hands. Her face was tight with anger. Drink, then we burn his pictures. I sat on the narrow twin bed, looking at the bare, cream-colored walls. Mark was drinking champagne in a mansion. I was drinking tea in a storage room. I wiped a single tear from my cheek. It was hot and angry. He thinks I'm nothing, I said to the air, feeling the anger replace the sadness. His mother thinks I'm nothing. Just a placeholder. I looked at my reflection in the dark window. I looked tired, broken, and poor. But I was still standing. Never again, I swore, my voice low and hard. I will never let a man make me feel this small again. I'm going to survive this. And then I'm going to make them regret every single word. I stared at the glowing screen of the ATM, my stomach twisting into a tight knot. Insufficient funds. Great, I muttered, hitting the cancel button. Just great. It had been a month since Mark left, and my life was currently valued at less than $20. I walked out of the bank and into the busy street, pulling my coat tighter. It was starting to rain, and I didn't have an umbrella. I ducked into a nearby coffee shop, not to buy anything, but just to dry off for a minute. Elena? Oh my God, is that you? My shoulders tensed. I knew that high-pitched, overly excited voice anywhere. I turned around slowly to see Chloe standing there, holding an iced latte that probably cost more than my entire outfit. Hi, Chloe, I said, forcing a polite smile. Long time no see. It has been ages. She stepped closer, her eyes scanning me up and down. You look tired, sweetie. Are you okay? I heard about the breakup. It's just awful. I'm getting by, I said, shifting my weight. I'm actually in a rush, so... Oh, wait. I just have to ask, she interrupted, pulling her phone out of her designer bag. Have you seen the venue they picked? It's insane. I froze. Venue? For the wedding. Chloe tapped her screen rapidly. I know I shouldn't show you, but you have to see this. It's like something out of a movie. She shoved the phone in my face before I could protest. There was Mark. He was standing on a marble balcony, wearing a suit that fit him perfectly, a suit I certainly never bought him. And there was Vanessa, draped in white silk, laughing with her head thrown back. She looked radiant. He looked like a prince. They booked the grand hall, Chloe gushed, swiping to the next photo. And look at the flowers. Imported roses. Thousands of them. He looks happy, I said, my voice hollow. Happy? He's ecstatic, Chloe laughed. And why wouldn't he be? Vanessa's dad just made him the vice president of operations at Sterling Corp. Can you believe it? He went from unemployed to VP in a month. The words hit me like a physical punch. VP? He doesn't know anything about real estate. Does it matter? Chloe smirked, leaning in as if sharing a secret. When you marry the boss's daughter, you don't need qualifications. You just need a ring. He's got the money, the status, the girl. He really won the lottery, didn't he? She looked at me with pity in her eyes, but I saw the spark of amusement there too. She was enjoying this. She liked seeing me broken while Mark was winning. I have to go, I said abruptly, pushing past her. Call me if you need to talk. She called out after me, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. I rushed into the shop's small restroom and locked the door. My hands were shaking. I gripped the edge of the sink and stared into the mirror. The woman staring back at me looked pathetic. My skin was pale, my eyes were puffy and red-rimmed, and my hair was a mess. I looked like a victim. I looked exactly like the simple girl Mark said I was. He didn't win, I whispered to the reflection. He sold himself. I thought about him in that expensive suit, laughing with a woman he barely knew, taking a job he didn't earn. He had erased me completely. He was living the high life while I was counting pennies and getting pitied by girls like Chloe. Something inside me snapped. The sadness that had been weighing me down for 30 days suddenly evaporated. In its place, a hot, burning anger ignited. I turned on the faucet and splashed cold water on my face. I scrubbed away the tears. I scrubbed away the pity. No more, I said aloud, my voice steady for the first time in weeks. You want to see what I'm made of, Mark? Fine. I dried my face with a rough paper towel and looked back at the mirror. The sad eyes were gone. They were hard now, focused. The old Elena is dead, I told myself. And the new one isn't going to just survive. She's going to win. This portfolio, the man across the desk said, tapping a finger against the thick paper. It's aggressive. I sat straighter in the uncomfortable leather chair, clasping my hands together to stop them from shaking. Liam, the head architect of Vanguard Designs, was more intimidating than I had expected. He was tall, sharp-featured, and had eyes that seemed to scan for structural weaknesses in people, not just buildings. It's not aggressive, I corrected him, my voice surprisingly steady. It's functional. Design shouldn't just be pretty. It has to work. Liam looked up slowly. Most applicants tell me about their artistic vision or emotional landscapes. You're talking about function. Art doesn't pay the rent, I said. The words slipped out before I could stop them. Function does. A corner of his mouth twitched upward. You're hired. Trial period starts Monday. Don't make me regret it. I won't, I promised. I threw myself into the job like it was a life raft in the middle of the ocean. If I stopped moving, I started thinking about Mark. If I started thinking about Mark, I remembered the wedding photos. So I didn't stop moving. 3 weeks later, I was the last one in the office again. The city lights were glowing outside the floor-to-ceiling windows. Go home, Elena, a deep voice rumbled from the doorway. I jumped, knocking a pen off my desk. Liam was leaning against the doorframe, holding a cup of coffee. I'm almost done with the blueprints for the hotel lobby, I said, retrieving the pen. I just need to fix the lighting schematics. The hotel isn't going anywhere, Liam said, walking into the room. He set the coffee down on my desk. Black, 2 sugars. You look like you need it. Thank you, I murmured, taking a sip. The warmth spread through my chest. He looked at my screen, studying the 3D render I had been obsessing over for hours. You changed the focal point, he noted. I did, I admitted, bracing myself for criticism. The original layout was too safe. It felt beige. I wanted something bold. I flinched internally. Mark used to hate when I tried new things. Why do you always have to complicate things, Elena? Just keep it simple. You're trying too hard. His voice echoed in my memory. Bold, Liam repeated, testing the word. He looked at me, then back at the screen. You have a good eye, Elena. Most junior designers are terrified of taking risks. You dive right in. I blinked. You like it? I don't like it, he said, pushing off the desk to leave. I love it. Keep the lighting. It works. He paused at the door. And Elena, stop doubting your gut. You're better at this than you think you are. For the first time in months, I felt a spark of pride. It wasn't because a man told me I was pretty. It was because a man I respected told me I was competent. 6 months flew by in a blur of drafting tables, fabric swatches, and site visits. Elena at my office, now. Liam's voice came over the intercom. My stomach dropped. Had I messed up the sprawling penthouse project? I smoothed down my skirt-tailored navy pencil skirt I had bought with my last paycheck and walked into his office. Close the door, he said, not looking up from his paperwork. I obeyed and stood in front of his desk. Is something wrong with the penthouse designs? No, Liam said, finally looking up. He slid a thick white envelope across the mahogany desk. The client loved them. They signed off on the budget this morning. That's great, I exhaled, relieved. So, what's this? Open it, I tore the seal. Inside was a formal letter. I scanned the text, my eyes widening. Senior designer? I gasped. Liam, I've only been here 6 months. You've done 2 years' worth of work in 6 months, he said matter-of-factly. There's a raise included. A significant one. I looked at the salary figure. It wasn't millions. It wasn't Vanessa's sterling money. But it was enough to rent a nice apartment. It was enough to buy my own groceries, my own clothes, my own life. I don't know what to say, I whispered. Say thank you and get back to work, Liam said, though his eyes were kind. You earned this, Elena. Nobody gave it to you. You took it. I gripped the letter tight. Thank you. I walked out of his office, my heels clicking rhythmically against the floor. I caught my reflection in the glass wall of the conference room. The woman staring back wasn't the pale, crying girl on the floor of Sarah's spare room. She was sharp. She was focused. She was employed. I took a deep breath, and for the first time since the breakup, my chest didn't hurt. I was standing on my own 2 feet, and the view was spectacular. Relax your shoulders, Liam whispered, leaning in close so only I could hear. You look like you're about to fight someone. I took a deep breath, inhaling the scent of expensive perfume and fresh lily. I'm just not used to this. The chandeliers alone probably cost more than my parents' house. You fit in perfectly, Liam said, handing me a glass of sparkling water. That emerald color looks incredible on you. Now come on. There's a potential client near the ice sculpture. I want you to meet. I smoothed the fabric of my gown, a gift to myself from my first big commission check, and nodded. Lead the way. We began to weave through the crowd of tuxedos and designer dresses. The room hummed with the sound of clinking glasses and polite laughter. But as we neared the center of the room, the laughter died down. I stopped dead in my tracks. Elena? Liam asked, pausing beside me. What's wrong? Nothing, I lied, my voice tight. Just ... looking. There they were. Mark was standing near a pillar, holding a champagne flute. He was wearing a tuxedo that fit him like a glove, the kind of suit he used to dream about looking at in magazines. But he didn't look like a king. He looked gray. His skin was sallow, and deep, dark circles hung under his eyes like bruises. Vanessa was clinging to his arm, but she wasn't looking at him. She was scrolling on her phone, looking utterly bored. Suddenly, a large, imposing man with silver hair stormed up to them. It was Mr. Sterling, the real estate tycoon. What is the matter with you? Mr. Sterling bellowed. The jazz music was loud, but his voice was louder. Several heads turned. Sir, Mark started, his voice cracking. He looked terrified. I told you to secure the Grimshaw deal. Sterling shouted, poking a thick finger into Mark's chest. And I hear they walked away. Are you incompetent? They wanted more time, Mark stammered, shrinking back against the pillar. I was trying to negotiate the terms. I don't pay you to negotiate. Sterling interrupted, his face turning a dangerous shade of red. I pay you to close deals. You're useless. If you weren't married to my daughter, I'd have security throw you out right now. Mark looked down at his polished shoes, his shoulders slumped. I'm sorry, sir. I'll fix it. You better, Sterling hissed. Go get me a drink. Scotch, meat, and don't mess that up. Sterling stormed off, leaving Mark standing there humiliated. I felt a strange sensation in my chest. It wasn't pity. It was shock. Mark had left me because he wanted respect. He wanted power. Now, he was being scolded like a naughty child in front of half the city. Mark exhaled slowly and looked up. That's when he saw me. I was standing tall, my head high, with Liam handsome and successful standing protectively beside me. Mark's eyes went wide. He blinked as if he couldn't believe it was really me. He took a jerky step forward, his lips moving. Elena? I read the word on his lips. He started to walk toward me, a desperate look on his face. He looked like a drowning man seeing a life raft. He raised a hand, about to call out, "Mark!" Vanessa's voice cut through the air like a whip. She hadn't even looked up from her phone. She just snapped her fingers. Snap, snap. "My glass is empty," she said, holding it out without even looking at him. "Refill now." Mark froze. He looked at me just 10 feet away. Then he looked at his wife's outstretched hand. The desperation in his eyes faded, replaced by defeat. "Coming, honey," he mumbled. He turned his back on me and took the empty glass, scurrying off toward the bar like a servant. "Do you know him?" Liam asked quietly, watching the scene. I watched Mark disappear into the crowd, trapped in his expensive suit and his miserable life. "No," I said, turning away and taking a sip of my water. I thought I did. But that man is a stranger. Mark had wanted a golden life. He got it, but looking at his hunched shoulders, I realized he forgot that gold is heavy, and cages come in all shapes and sizes. "You will never guess who just rolled into town," Chloe practically shrieked into the phone. I sighed, pinning the phone between my shoulder and ear while I organized fabric swatches on my desk. "I'm working, Chloe. Make it quick. Is it another wedding update?" "Because I really don't need to know." "No, this is better." She lowered her voice, though the excitement was still vibrating through the speaker. "Jason Gable." My hand froze over a swatch of blue velvet. "Mark's brother? The one and only," she giggled. "And get this, he's staying at the mansion." "In the guest wing. Mark must be furious," I said, a dry laugh escaping me. "He always hated Jason." "Oh, he is," Chloe confirmed. "I heard from a caterer that Mark tried to kick him out the first night. But Vanessa insisted he stay. Apparently she finds him entertaining." "Entertaining?" I repeated, feeling a strange chill. "Vanessa doesn't seem like the type to enjoy house guests." "She likes shiny new toys, Elena," Chloe said darkly. "And you remember Jason. He's definitely shiny. Anyway, just thought you should know." "The drama is heating up." I hung up, staring at the wall. I remembered Jason well. He was the opposite of Mark. Where Mark was stiff, anxious, and obsessed with rules, Jason was wild, charming, and reckless. Mark hated him because Jason didn't have to try hard to be liked. People just gravitated toward him. I needed to clear my head. I grabbed my coat and headed to the coffee shop around the corner from the office. I was waiting for my cappuccino, scrolling through emails when a shadow fell over my table. Well, a familiar husky voice drawled. "If it isn't the one that got away." I looked up. Leaning against the counter, wearing a battered leather jacket and a grin that spelled trouble, was Jason. "Jason?" I said, surprised by how little he had changed. "I heard you were back." "News travels fast in this town," he smirked, sliding into the chair opposite me without asking. He picked up my sugar packet and started flipping it between his fingers. "Let me guess, Chloe?" "She has big ears," I admitted. "What are you doing here, Jason?" "Just getting some caffeine before I head back to the castle," he said, rolling his eyes. "You look good, Elena, really good. Better than when you were babysitting my brother." "I wasn't babysitting him," I said defensively, though we both knew it was true. "I was his partner. You were his crutch," Jason corrected, his blue eyes piercing. "And now that you're gone, he's wobbling. You should see him, Elena. He's a nervous wreck. Jumpier than a cat in a room full of rocking chairs. I saw him at the gala," I said quietly. He looked tired. "Tired? The guy's terrified." Jason laughed, but it wasn't a kind sound. "He's terrified of his boss, terrified of losing his money, and terrified of his wife." "And you?" I asked, studying his face. "Chloe said you're staying with them. Isn't that awkward?" "And you?" I asked, studying his face. "Chloe said you're staying with them. Isn't that awkward?" "It's hilarious," Jason grinned, leaning forward. "Mark walks around clenching his jaw every time I breathe, but Vanessa, she's different." "Different how?" "She's bored, Elena," Jason said, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Rich girls get bored easily. And when they get bored, they look for distractions. She thinks I'm a novelty." "The bad boy brother." "Be careful, Jason," I warned him, feeling a knot form in my stomach. "They aren't just playing house. These are dangerous people." "I like danger," he winked. Besides, Mark stole 5 years of your life. Don't you think it's only fair if I make his life a little difficult? Just don't get burned, I said, standing up as the barista called my name. Jason looked up at me, that dangerous glint shining in his eyes. I don't get burned, Elena, he said softly. I'm the fire. I took my coffee and walked out, but I couldn't shake the feeling that a storm was coming. Mark had sacrificed me to get into that family, and now his own brother was inside the walls, holding a match. Excuse me, miss, you can't put that planter there. It blocks the security line of sight. I paused, lowering the heavy tape measure. I was standing in the lobby of the Sterling Grand, the hotel chain owned by Vanessa's father. It was just a job of freelance consultation for the renovation, but it felt like walking into the lion's den. I turned around to see a mountain of a man standing behind me. He wore a black suit that strained against his shoulders and an earpiece coiled behind his ear. I'm sorry, I said, stepping back. I was just checking the spacing for the new seating area. I'm the lead designer on the renovation. I know who you are, he said. His voice was deep, gravelly, and devoid of emotion. You're Elena. My stomach tightened. And you are? Lucas, he said, crossing his arms. Head of personal security for the Sterling family. I took an instinctive step back. Is this Mark here or Vanessa? No, Lucas said, his expression softening just a fraction. Just me today. Running a site check before the grand reopening. Oh, good, I exhaled, my shoulders dropping. I don't want any trouble, Lucas. I'm just doing my job. I don't care about trouble, he said, leaning against a marble pillar. He looked tired. I just care about quiet. And I haven't had much of that lately. I raised an eyebrow. I thought working for the wealthy was all quiet luxury. Luxury? Sure, Lucas snorted, a dry, humorless sound. Quiet? Not at the mansion. The Sterling house is very loud these days. I hesitated, knowing I shouldn't ask, but unable to stop myself. Loud? Like parties? Like war, Lucas corrected. He looked around the empty lobby to ensure we were alone, then looked back at me. Lots of fighting between the husband and wife, screaming matches that wake up the staff. Doors slamming. Mark and Vanessa? I asked, feigning surprise. But they're practically newlyweds. Doesn't stop her from going out every night, Lucas murmured, checking his watch. She leaves at 10. Comes back at 3. Sometimes 4. And Mark? He waits up. Lucas shook his head. Pacing the foyer, watching the driveway cameras. He asks me to track her car sometimes. Does he really? I whispered. He's paranoid, Lucas stated flatly. He thinks everyone is laughing at him. He checks the mileage on her Porsche. He checks her phone records. The guy's unraveling, Elena. He looks like a ghost. He wanted that life, I said, my voice hardening. He wanted the status. He got the status, Lucas agreed, pushing off the pillar, but he lost his sleep. He asks about you sometimes, I stiffened. Don't tell him anything. I don't, Lucas assured me. I just tell him to go to bed. Not that he listens. He adjusted his earpiece as static crackled through it. I have to go, he said. Move the planter 2 feet to the left. The cameras need a clear shot. Thanks, Lucas, I said. Don't mention it. And Elena? He paused, looking me in the eye. You look like you're sleeping just fine. I am. I smiled, and I meant it. Like a baby. He nodded and walked away, disappearing into the shadows of the hotel. I stood there for a moment, letting the information sink in. Mark had left me because I was simple. He wanted a complex, high-status life. Now he was pacing a marble floor at 3 a.m., terrified of where his wife was, while I went home to a small, warm apartment and slept through the night. I moved the planter 2 feet to the left, feeling lighter than I had in months. The silence of my own life suddenly felt like the greatest luxury of all. I sliced into my steak, savoring the fact that I could now afford a dinner like this without checking my bank balance 3 times. The restaurant was dimly lit, filled with the soft murmur of conversations and the clinking of expensive silverware. It was peaceful. Elena, the voice was wet, thick with alcohol. I froze, my knife scritching slightly against the ceramic plate. I looked up. Mark was swaying by my table. His tie was loosened, his top button was undone, and his eyes were swimming in a red haze. He looked like a wreck. Mark, I said, setting my fork down slowly. You're drunk. I'm celebrating, he mumbled, pulling out the empty chair opposite me. He fell into it rather than sitting, knocking the table hard enough to spill water from my glass. Celebrating the misery. You can't sit here, I said, glancing around. People are staring. Let them stare, he scoffed, waving a hand dismissively. They all stare anyway. Look at Mark Gable, the lucky bastard. They don't know, Elena. They don't have a clue. Know what? I asked, signaling the waiter with my eyes, hoping he'd intervene soon. That she's cold, Mark whispered, leaning across the table. The smell of scotch was overpowering. Vanessa, she's like a statue. Beautiful but stone. She doesn't laugh. She doesn't cook. She just demands. You wanted a queen, I reminded him, my voice cool and steady. Queens don't cook, Mark. You wanted status. You got it? I made a mistake, he blurted out, his eyes suddenly filling with tears. I didn't know it would be like this. I come home and the house is empty. Or worse, she's there and she looks through me like I'm glass. Like I'm the help. He reached across the white tablecloth. His fingers brushed against my hand. You were warm, he said, his voice cracking. You always made the house feel warm. You listened to me. I yanked my hand back as if I had been burned. Don't touch me, I snapped. Elena, please, he begged. I miss you. I miss us. There is no us, I hissed, leaning forward so only he could hear. You killed us the night you walked out with that suitcase. You told me I wasn't enough, remember? You said I was simple. You said I held you back. I was an idiot, he cried, a little too loudly. A couple at the next table turned to look. I was blind. You were the only real thing in my life. I'm not a consolation prize, I said firmly. You made your bed, Mark. Lie in it. Just then, the phone in his jacket pocket buzzed violently against the table. BZZT, BZZT. He glanced at it with a sneer but didn't pick it up. Aren't you going to answer that? I asked. It might be your wife. It's not her, he muttered darkly. Or maybe it is. Asking where I am so she can sneak out. Sneak out? She's cheating on me, Elena, he confessed, staring down at his whiskey glass. I know she is. I can feel it. My heart skipped a beat. I thought of Jason smiling dangerously in the coffee shop. I thought of Lucas, the bodyguard, telling me about the late nights. Do you know who it is? I asked carefully. No, Mark shook his head. But I bet it's someone from the competition. Probably that jerk from Highland Real Estate. Someone with more money. Someone she thinks is better than me. He laughed, a bitter, broken sound. It's funny, isn't it? I left you for someone better, and now she's doing the same to me. She found a bigger fish. For a split second, I felt a twinge of pity. He looked so small, so defeated, inventing imaginary business rivals when the truth was living in his own guest room. But then I remembered the way he had laughed at me when I begged him to stay. I remembered the nights I spent crying on Sarah's floor. The pity vanished instantly. It's not funny, Mark, I said, standing up and grabbing my purse. It's karma. Where are you going? He asked, panic rising in his voice. Don't leave me here. I'm going home, I said, throwing cash on the table for my meal. To my quiet, warm apartment. Elena, go home to your wife, Mark, I said, looking down at him one last time. She's waiting for you. Or maybe she isn't. I turned and walked out of the restaurant, leaving him alone with his drink and his buzzing phone. I didn't look back. Pass the popcorn, Sarah said, tapping the screen of her iPad aggressively. The live stream is lagging again. There are too many people watching. I sat next to her on the couch, pulling a blanket over my legs. I can't believe we're doing this. It feels voyeuristic. It's not voyeurism, it's justice, Sarah corrected, refreshing the page. Besides, Mrs. Gable wanted the event of the season. She got it. 30,000 viewers and counting. The video feed snapped back into focus. The image was crisp, showing the sprawling backyard of the Sterling estate. It was decked out in gold and white for Mrs. Gable's 60th birthday. There were ice sculptures, a live jazz band, and waiters in white tuxedos. There he is, I pointed at the corner of the screen. Mark was pushing through the crowd. He didn't look like a proud son celebrating his mother. He looked frantic. He was grabbing the arm of a passing waiter. Even through the screen, I could read his lips. Where is she? He's looking for Vanessa, I whispered. He's panic searching, and the camera guy knows it, Sarah noted. Look, they're following him. This streamer lives for drama. On the screen, the camera bobbed as the operator followed Mark away from the main party tent. The noise of the jazz band faded slightly, replaced by the sound of Mark's heavy footsteps crunching on the gravel path. "Vanessa!" Mark's voice cut through the audio feed, shrill and desperate. "He's going toward the pool house," I said, recognizing the layout from the photos Chloe had shown me. Why would she be in the pool house during the speeches? "Maybe she's fixing her makeup," Sarah suggested, though her tone suggested otherwise. Mark reached the double doors of the pool house. They were closed. He pounded on the wood with his fist. "Vanessa, open the door. Mother's about to cut the cake." Mark shouted. Silence. Then a muffled sound came from inside. It sounded like a giggle. Mark froze. He grabbed the handle and rattled it. Locked. "Kick it in." Sarah yelled at the iPad, caught up in the moment. As if he heard her, Mark took a step back and threw his shoulder against the door. It didn't budge. He did it again, harder. The latch gave way with a loud crack. The door swung open. The cameraman, sensing the climax, rushed forward, zooming in over Mark's shoulder. The entire internet saw it at the same time. Vanessa was there, lounging on one of the plush white sofas. She was holding a glass of wine, her lipstick smeared. And next to her, shirtless and grinning, was a man. Mark stood frozen in the doorway, his back to the camera. But his voice, it picked up perfectly on the microphone. "Jason?" It came out as a strangled whimper. "Jason?" Mark screamed, the sound tearing through the speakers so loudly I flinched. "My brother? You're with my brother?" "Oh, lighten up, Mark," Vanessa's voice drawled, clear as a bell. She didn't cover herself. She didn't look ashamed. She laughed. It was a cold, cruel sound. "At least keep it in the family." Mark was shaking. He turned around, his face pale as a sheet, eyes wide with horror. He looked directly into the camera lens, realizing for the first time that the world was watching. "Jason," Mark whispered again, looking back at his brother. Jason just shrugged, taking a sip of Vanessa's wine. "Happy birthday, Mom," he smirked. "Oh my God," I breathed, covering my mouth with my hand. "It's not just a rival. It's his blood." "He mocked Jason his whole life," Sarah said, her eyes wide. "He called him a loser." And now, on the screen, Mrs. Gable came running up the path, attracted by the screaming. She looked into the pool house, saw her 2 sons and the daughter-in-law, and promptly fainted into a waiter's arms. The feed cut to black. Connection lost. Holy, Sarah trailed off, staring at the blank screen. I sat back against the cushions, stunned. Mark had betrayed me to climb the ladder. He wanted to be part of the elite. He wanted the perfect family. "He lost everything," I whispered, the silence of the apartment deafening after the chaos on the screen. His wife. His brother, his dignity. "It's all gone. That wasn't just a breakup," Sarah said, looking at me. "That was a nuclear explosion." I looked at the black screen, imagining Mark standing in that doorway, the laughter of his wife and brother ringing in his ears. "He wanted a life of drama," I said softly. "He got it." The phone rang while I was reviewing the final blueprints for the library renovation. I didn't recognize the number, but the area code was local. "Hello, this is Elena," I answered, cradling the phone against my shoulder. "Elena, thank God." I pulled the phone away from my ear. The voice was shrill, hysterical, and painfully familiar. It was Mrs. Gable. "Mrs. Gable?" I asked, setting down my pen. "Why are you calling me? Is everything okay?" "Okay? Nothing is okay." She shrieked. "He's ruined us. He's ruined everything." "Who, Mark?" "Yes, Mark, that fool," she cried. "You have to take him in, Elena. You have to let him stay with you. He has nowhere to go. I can't have him at my condo. The press is camped outside my lawn." I blinked, confused. "Take him in?" "Mrs. Gable, he lives in a mansion. He's the vice president of Sterling Corp." "Not anymore," she sobbed. "It's all gone. In 48 hours, he lost it all." "Calm down," I said, though my voice was cold. "Tell me exactly what happened." "Sterling fired him," she spat out the words. "This morning. He called Mark into the office and told him he was a liability. He said the scandal was bad for the stock prices. He fired his own son-in-law just to clean up the mess." "He fired him?" I repeated. "But surely Mark has a severance package? Or his share of the assets?" Mrs. Gable let out a bitter, strangled laugh. "Assets? There are no assets." That idiot signed the prenuptial agreement without reading the fine print. He was so arrogant. He thought he would be married forever. The contract says if the marriage ends within 5 years, he gets nothing. 0. He walked out of that office with a cardboard box and the clothes on his back. I leaned back in my chair, stunned by the magnitude of the collapse. So he's broke. He has nothing, she wailed. Sterling canceled his company credit cards before he even left the building. And then, oh, the humiliation. What else? They kicked him out of the estate, she whispered, her voice trembling with rage. Security escorted him off the property. But do you know who they didn't kick out? I had a sinking feeling I knew the answer. Jason? Jason, she screamed. That's Snake. Vanessa told her father that Jason was a victim of circumstance and that she needed him for emotional support. Can you believe it? She kept the brother she slept with and threw her husband in the gutter. That's twisted, I admitted. It's Mark's fault, Mrs. Gable hissed, her tone shifting from sadness to pure venom. I told him he had to be smart. I told him he had the golden ticket. All he had to do was keep that woman happy. But no, he had to be weak. He let her get bored. He let his brother steal his life, and now look at me. I can't even show my face at the bridge club. Everyone is laughing at the Gables. I listened to her rant, realizing she didn't care about Mark's broken heart. She didn't care that her son was homeless or humiliated. She only cared that he had lost the family's access to wealth. She cared that her golden ticket had been punched. Mrs. Gable, I interrupted her tirade. You're his mother. If he has nowhere to go, he should be with you. I told you. I can't deal with the stress, she snapped. My blood pressure is through the roof. You used to love him, Elena. You used to take care of him. Just let him sleep on your couch until this blows over. No, I said simply. What? No, I repeated, my voice steady. Mark made his choices. He wanted a life of high stakes and big money. He gambled and he lost. I'm not his safety net anymore. I'm not his backup plan. You selfish girl, she gasped. After everything we did for you? You did nothing for me, Mrs. Gable, I said. You told me I wasn't good enough. You said he needed someone on his level. Well, now he's at rock bottom. Maybe that's his level. Elena, you can't. I hung up the phone. The silence in my office was heavy, but it wasn't sad. I looked out the window at the city skyline. Somewhere out there, Mark was standing on a street corner with a cardboard box. Stripped of his job, his wife, his home, and his mother's respect, karma hadn't just knocked on his door. It had bulldozed the entire house. I picked up my pen and went back to the blueprints. I had a deadline to meet, and unlike Mark, I still had a job to do. The rain was hammering against the glass, a relentless rhythm that sent a shiver down my spine. It sounded exactly like that night, the night the suitcase wheels had rolled over my heart. Expecting someone? A deep voice asked from the living room. No, I said, frowning. It's 10 o'clock. I walked to the door, tightening the belt of my robe. I unlocked the deadbolt and pulled it open just a crack. A gust of cold, wet wind hit my face. And there he was, Mark? I breathed, staring at the figure on my welcome mat. He didn't look like the man in the tuxedo from the gala. He didn't look like the vice president of Sterling Corp. He looked like a drowned rat. His hair was plastered to his forehead, and he was wearing a faded gray hoodie one I had bought him 3 years ago from a thrift store. He was shivering violently. Elena, his teeth chattered. Please, open the door. You can't be here, I said, though I didn't close it immediately. Shock held me in place. I have nowhere else to go, he sobbed, the tears mixing with the rain on his cheeks. My mother, she won't let me in. She said I embarrassed her. Vanessa changed the locks. I've been walking for hours. That isn't my problem, Mark. How can you say that? He lunged forward, grabbing the door frame with dirty fingers. After everything we've been through? 5 years, Elena. Doesn't that mean anything to you? It meant everything to me, I said, my voice shaking slightly. Until you told me I was a placeholder. Until you left me on this floor crying. I didn't mean it. He cried, his eyes wide and desperate. I was confused. I was under so much pressure. You don't know what it's like, Elena. They were eating me alive. I thought I needed to be someone else to survive. But I was wrong. He reached out, trying to touch my face, but I leaned back. I've learned my lesson, he pleaded, his voice dropping to a whisper. I don't want the money. I don't want the status. I just want us. We were happy, remember? We were a team. We can start over. Right here, tonight. I can handle being poor if I have you. Start over? I laughed, a harsh sound. You think you can just walk back in here because you failed out there? It's not because I failed. He insisted, stepping closer, trying to use his height to dominate the space. It's because you're the only one who understands me, Elena. You're the only one who ever truly loved me. Vanessa, she was a monster. But you? You're soft. You're kind. You're my home. For a second, the words almost worked. My heart twinged. I remembered the boy I used to make pasta for. I remembered the nights we spent dreaming on this very couch. He looked so broken, so familiar. He was playing on every insecurity I used to have, trying to make me feel like I was the only person in the world who could save him. I'm the only one who gets you, Mark. I asked softly. Yes, he nodded eagerly, sensing a crack in my armor. You know me, you know my heart, you and me against the world. Just like always. I paused. I felt a presence behind me, warm and steady. I turned my head slowly to look back into the apartment. Liam was sitting on the beige sofa. He was wearing reading glasses, holding a book in one hand and a mug of tea in the other. He wasn't pacing. He wasn't yelling. He wasn't demanding my attention or draining my energy. He looked up when he felt my gaze. He didn't rush over to mark his territory or puff out his chest. He just offered me a small, calm smile, trusting me completely. He went back to his page, secure in himself and secure in us. I looked back at Mark. He was chaos. He was a storm of need and selfishness. He didn't want me. He wanted a shelter. You're right, Mark, I said, my voice hardening as the nostalgia evaporated. I do understand you. I understand you perfectly. So I can come in? He asked, hope lighting up his wet face. No, I said, you can't. No? Mark repeated the word as if it were a foreign language. What do you mean, no? Elena, it's freezing out here. You can't leave me in the rain. I can, I said, my voice calm, steady, and unrecognizable from the girl who had begged him to stay in this very doorway months ago. And I am. You're doing this to punish me, he accused, wiping water from his eyes. You want me to beg? Is that it? Fine, I'm begging. I'm on my knees, Elena. Look. He dropped to his knees on the wet concrete of the breezeway. It was a theatrical, desperate gesture. A year ago, this would have shattered me. I would have rushed out, pulled him up, and apologized for making him feel bad. Now, I just looked down at him. I searched my chest for the anger that had fueled me for months. It wasn't there. I searched for the love that I thought would never die. That was gone too. There was just a dull, hollow pity. He looked like a child who had broken his favorite toy and expected his mother to fix it. Get up, Mark, I said softly. You're embarrassing yourself. I don't care about embarrassment. He shouted, his voice cracking. I care about survival. I have nothing. I thought you were the good one. I thought you were the saint. I'm not a saint, I corrected him. I'm just a woman who finally respects herself, but I chose you. He insisted, standing up and pressing his hand against the doorframe again. I came back to you. Doesn't that prove how special you are? I walked away from a mansion for you. You didn't walk away, I said, looking him dead in the eye. You were thrown out. He flinched as if I had slapped him. I'm not a consolation prize, Mark, I said firmly, the words tasting like iron and victory. You treated me for a lifestyle. Now you lost the lifestyle, but you don't get me back. So that's it? He sneered, his sadness instantly twisting into the ugly entitlement I knew so well. You're just going to let me rot? After 5 years? Those 5 years are gone, I said. And so are you. Elena, wait. I didn't wait. I stepped back and swung the heavy door shut. Click. I turned the deadbolt. Thud. I heard him scream my name once. A muffled, angry sound through the wood. Then silence. The rain swallowed him up. I stood there for a moment, staring at the white paint of the door. I waited for the guilt to hit me. I waited for the urge to open it back up. But all I felt was the quiet hum of the refrigerator and the warmth of the heater. I turned around. Liam was watching me from the couch. He hadn't moved, hadn't tried to interfere. He had let me fight my own battle because he knew I could win it. Is he gone? Liam asked quietly, closing his book. Yes, I exhaled, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders that I hadn't realized I was still carrying. He's gone. Are you okay? He asked, his eyes searching mine for any sign of cracks. I walked over to the couch and sat down next to him. I leaned my head on his shoulder, feeling the solid, steady warmth of him. I'm not just okay, I whispered, listening to the rain fall outside, knowing it couldn't touch me anymore. I'm free. Mark had chased a golden cage and ended up in the storm. I had built a simple, honest life and found a home. Karma had done its job. Now it was time for me to live mine.